Hello, this presentation is brought to you by the Speaking and Writing Center at the University of Mary Washington. Today, we will be discussing visual aids. This presentation will cover what is a visual aid, the purpose, tips and tricks including aspects about context, pictures, creativity, color, and resources you can use, and what differences you need to keep in mind for visual aids online. So, what is a visual aid? Why do we even bother with it? A visual aid is anything a speaker uses when they are presenting to help illustrate their points. You can get creative and think of a video or physical demonstration, but when we talk about visual aids in terms of classroom use, you'll most likely be encountering a PowerPoint or Google Slides. Some professional speakers can give amazing presentations without any visual aid, but there are a lot of benefits to using one. The primary goal of a good visual aid is to supplement and reinforce the points that you are making. It can help the information stick in your audience's mind and leave a lasting impact because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And a visual aid is only as good as how well you know it. Keep in mind through the rest of the presentation that it is incredibly important you practice your speech with your visual aid. That way, you can anticipate what is coming next. You can create smooth transitions between topics, and you won't be surprised by some graph you forgot you added. Now that we've got that clear, time for some tips and tricks. What goes into making a good visual aid? A lot, actually. But before you even start work on your aid, give some thought about the context of your presentation. What is the topic about? For example, if it's an environmental science class, maybe a green theme would be nice. Something with an emphasis on nature. Who are you giving your presentation to? A group of your peers? A group of experts? It changes a lot. With peers, you can pick something fun and flashy. You might include relevant memes or GIFs. With an expert, though, you need a more formal aid, and memes and GIFs would not be appropriate. Sometimes you may be asked to pretend your classmates are someone different, like a class of kindergartners or the United States Senate. So pay close attention to the assignment guidelines. The goal of an aid is to reinforce what you're saying in your speech. In order to do so, visual aids have to be clear and not cluttered. Cut down on the number of words you have on each slide. The Speaking and Writing Center's rule of thumb is the 6x6 rule. No more than 6 words per bullet and 6 bullets per slide. You also don't need to have complete sentences for each bullet point. You will cover what isn't written with your words. The bullets are just to help reinforce what you are saying. Remember, you're the star of the show, not your visual aid. If you feel you still have more information than can be encompassed in 6 bullets for a topic, make a second slide. Unless your professor has given you a certain slide number limit, there is no right amount of slides. Obviously, don't just have one bullet point or just one picture per slide, unless you're making a big impact. But I would err on the side of having more slides and spacing out the information than having fewer slides that are totally cluttered. Include pictures. Pictures should be high quality, not stretched out, and not stock photos or clip art. Don't add too many, certainly not more than 3 or 4 pictures per slide. Pictures don't have to be rectangles. You can change the shape of them and even have cool artistic effects. To make a big point, you can make them take up the entire slide. You might discover the beauty of transparent images. Transparent here just means that there's no background to the picture. It looks like the image is actually coming out of the slide. If used well, this can sometimes make your presentation look more professional or add a sort of 3D effect. Put thought into the pictures you use. Don't just settle for something generic. Make sure the picture actually relates in some way to your presentation content, or helps make what you're talking about more memorable. If you are using graphics that aren't high quality or related to your topic, it can make your presentation lose the professional vibe you were going for. If you're worried about your images, or if you get overwhelmed when you start looking for graphics, try outlining your visual aids. This could be done after you outline your speech, or after you have made your slides with bullet points. Think about what will make a big statement. This could be done for your presentation on leatherback sea turtles. You want one slide to be its title slide. For slide 2, you want a picture of a turtle nest. Slide 3 has a quote, so you don't want a picture. And for slide 4, you want a picture of a baby turtle. Then, when you begin to look for these pictures, you will have a more specific idea of what to look for, and it won't be as overwhelming. It can also save time since you won't have to look through so many images. And you know exactly where you want them to be. You won't have to decide what slide the picture looks best on. There's a lot more out there than just pictures. Get creative and try thinking about adding a graph. You don't have to have numerical data to use one. It can be a good way to make your point without any words. Same with timelines. Even if your presentation isn't about history, it can be a good way to break down a big idea into smaller, easier to understand bits. You might use props. Just as much as pictures and graphs, they can really make your point clear to an audience. I'm sure for most of us, we can't remember 90% of what we learned in K through 12, but that one time a teacher brought in a prop or actually demonstrated Mentos and soda will forever be cemented in our minds. Some people find the process of making a presentation a lot of fun, and it absolutely can be. Even with just ordinary PowerPoint and Google Slide themes, you can really make it your own. You can add shapes and text boxes, you can change the theme itself, changing effects for the background or the colors used. Just look at this slide with a different background color. Fonts are also extremely important. You want to make sure anyone in the class can read your slides. If you use a super frilly cursive font, there might be some people in the class who can't read it. This doesn't mean you can't use fun fonts and you can only use Times New Roman. Nunito, Space Mono, Montserrat, and even Open Sans are all fun and legible fonts. But there are countless others. You can also match your font to your presentation. If you are doing a presentation on what you learned from your education practicum, you could do your slide titles in Comic Sans or permanent marker. That way it looks like writing on a chalkboard, or like your elementary school English teacher who graded with a marker instead of a pen. But also, be sure that your fonts are big enough to read, and make sure there is a contrast between your text and your background. These things aren't just optional. A fellow student in your class may have a visual disability and be unable to read a font if it isn't on a solid background. Color blindness also makes it impossible to see points on your slide if there isn't enough color contrast. But don't be scared. Colors are actually a presenter's best friend. You can use their different meanings to help set different tones. Yellow is happier, blue is calming, etc. Unfortunately, you can't include every color. Make sure you stick to a consistent palette of around 6 colors or less. One out-of-the-box idea you could use is having different shades of the same color to create a monochromatic presentation. The absence of color is a good option as well. But be careful, because no one gets excited for plain white slides and black text. It can look lazy, but if done well, minimal black and white only presentations create a sense of elegance. For all color-related conundrums, the color wheel is an excellent tool. Try experimenting with different colors and their intensity, like orange and blue. These two colors go together because they are complementary, meaning that they are exactly opposite one another on the color wheel. When blue and orange are used in a bright presentation theme, they can leave your audience feeling a sense of excitement, perfect for a presentation about a happy topic, like dogs and cats finding their forever homes. But if you take those same two colors and gray them out a little bit, suddenly they can be used for a presentation that isn't as happy, like a presentation analyzing the film, spoiler alert, Marley and Me. If you want your presentations to look better and you have no idea where to start, there are resources out there for you. PowerPoint's design ideas will auto-generate pretty ways to display your slides as you add information. Slides Carnival has both professional and fun themes you can download to use for PowerPoint or Google Slides. Canva is also a great choice and has many prepared presentation templates for you to choose from. Finally, what do you need to keep in mind specifically for presenting online? Well, on Zoom, there's already a lot of widgets taking up your screen space, so it's even more important to keep your visuals uncluttered, clear, and readable. Also, remember where your icon is and make sure the visual aid isn't going to be covered by that. In some ways, you can actually do more with online visual aids. Adding music to your video like we have to this one right now subconsciously helps keep listeners' brains engaged and covers up any background noise like a fan or the sound of you taking a deep breath. Avoid background music with lyrics. It's too distracting to process two voices at the same time. Also, make sure that the music isn't so loud that it's covering the sound of your voice at all, and that it matches the mood of your presentation. I bet you didn't even think about using sound effects. It may not be appropriate for all presentations, and they shouldn't be used so much that you sound like a Looney Tune. But they're useful. Sounds, just like pictures, can also emphasize information and communicate points of their own without you saying anything. It's like a sort of shorthand. For example, Sammy D. Eagle came in for a speaking consultation, and then he gave an awesome speech. If you are presenting over Zoom and you want to add a little bit of audience participation, you can add a poll. You can email your professor and ask them to release a Zoom poll for you at a specific part of your presentation. Or you could use another source online and put a link in the Zoom chat before you begin. You could also see how much your classmates know about your topic before and after your presentation by adding a Kahoot. Remember to ask your professor's permission before you do any of this. Lastly, make sure during the presentation you check the chat box as it allows people to engage without interrupting. If your presentation is asynchronous, ScreenPal, formerly Screencast-O-Matic, is a great tool for screen recording. You can click through and speak just like a normal presentation. It's free to use and doesn't require any sort of sign-up. For more about recording presentations, check out our video about virtual presentations and recordings. That concludes our presentation. Now you know all about visual aids. Remember to cite everything, including pictures and audio. If you would like more information or have any questions, search for the Speaking and Writing Center on the UMW homepage to find our contact info, or use the link in the description. You can also follow us on social media to stay up to date with what we are offering. Thank you for watching. I'm Emma, a consultant at the Speaking and Writing Center. Be sure to leave a like and smash that subscribe button.